Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeff Malinoff, and with me is Mark Souza. We got a lot to talk about today in the NBA, most notably a trade from Cleveland to Utah. We'll say who it is later, as well as we round up some games in the NBA. And we might be talking about some controversies that happened in the final segment regarding Dwight Howard, but we might not get into that. Who knows what will happen. But right now we'll start off with Utah has traded for Krover from Cleveland for a couple second-round picks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, Alec Burks and 2 second-round picks.
Yes. And apparently some Cleveland players were not happy about this trade either.
Really?
Yeah, they seemed actually upset about losing one of their best three-point shooters, and it just seemed like the front office and the players are not getting along. And this put it into another circumstance in where
this will probably be the first move of many for this team. So
yeah, this is obviously a rebuilding Cleveland Cavaliers after losing LeBron James to Los Angeles, and Krover going to the Utah Jazz might up their game a bit and put them back into a playoff contention. Don't you think?
Possibly. They were 29th in the NBA in 3-point shooting before this trade is made, so they needed a lot of help in that department. And Krover, we know he's a guy who's getting up there in age, but he can still drain those spot threes. I think he does give them another option off the bench. I think we'll see him definitely boost the three-point percentage. And we know in today's NBA, it's really hard to win without hitting threes. It is. It's incredibly hard to win without hitting threes. You look at the teams that are winning. You look at the teams like the Warriors. Those teams shooting a lot of threes, their percentages are up, and as the Jazz are hovering around that 30% percentage range, that's just not going to get it done if they want to get back into the playoff picture.
Yeah, and they're pretty low in the Western Conference at the moment. They have been struggling, but this, I feel like, can boost them a lot. I feel like this can put them into that playoff contention. Krover is a difference maker, and his contract when he signed with them or got with the Cleveland Cavaliers when LeBron was there, he said if LeBron leaves, he didn't want to be part of that team anymore. Release me or trade me. So he got what he wanted in this trade. So this might benefit him to go to Utah, a possible playoff contender now since they have been struggling. But the bottom line is Krover is now in Utah, and Cleveland is now going to be even worse than they were before.
Possible. I don't know if they can be worse, to be honest with you. Maybe. They are 4-16. It wasn't like they were anywhere near decent with them, but that's obviously
what I meant. I meant they're going to be worse than they were, and that's bad. So
maybe. Who knows? We'll see.
Just shows how losing a legendary player like LeBron can put your team in such disarray.
Yep, second time that's happened for Cleveland. They lose LeBron, they go to the basement of the league. Happened before, it happened again. So they're at 4-16. They're actually technically, do you know that they're technically not the worst record in the NBA? Phoenix is at 4-17. They've lost one more game.
Congratulations, Phoenix. You're the worst team in the NBA, officially by record. Tell them what they've won, Mark.
Cleveland, if Cleveland won their next game, they would be the third worst team in their own conference. Yeah, so. Yeah, we'll see. Anyways, how did the Jazz do last night?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. In the game against...
They played the Nets on the road.
Good leeway, my friend, into our next topic, which are the games that have happened in the last 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday they did play the Brooklyn Nets. And is it still weird for you to say Brooklyn Nets and not New Jersey Nets?
No. I've transitioned already.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, all right, fair enough. And
I think it's because like their logo's different. Like everything's
different. Makes sense. And speaking of this game, Utah beat Brooklyn by 10 points, 101-91.
Mm-hmm.
And Donovan Mitchell had a great game, 29 points, 5 rebounds, and an assist. Gobert had 23 points, 16 rebounds to his credit, which is a pretty decent, his average type of game, which is very good. And of course, it doesn't go well for Brooklyn. 91 points into the season where everyone's scoring at least 100 points. It feels like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Utah. Donovan Mitchell had a pretty good game.
Mm-hmm.
29 points on 24 shots. It was nice to see him back in the lineup after he had missed some time with minor injury. But yeah, I mean, as you look at last night's game, for example, let's look at the box score. 32% from three. The Jazz were. So you had a guy like Korver, you could see how he would make games like this maybe a little bit easier. Maybe
Donovan Mitchell went 2 of 8 from 3.
Mm-hmm.
Ricky Rubio went 0 of 5 from 3.
0 for 9 total, too.
Yeah. Rubio did not have the best type of game. He even only had 4 assists, too. So it wasn't like... Remember, he was a first-round draft pick. So...
Yeah, on the other side, D'Angelo Russell, 6 of 25 shooting, so there's some bad numbers being put up here last night.
That is like
14 points, 6 of 25.
It's like he's just shooting shots without looking, just hoping one goes in.
Yeah, he's got the green light, so he used it.
Well, who else gets the green light? I mean, there's not really anyone else that could shoot on this team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially now.
Can you imagine if they had their first-round draft picks they didn't give away to Boston?
It's sad, though, because LeVert was looking really good, and he got hurt. So now the Nets, and they were already going to struggle, but now it's even worse. But you see on the other side, the Jazz shoot 32% from 3. Now they get a guy like Korver. Maybe, they can bump that up because they're hovering around that percentage anyway. So if they can get up to like 36, 37%, they'll be able to score more points on a nightly basis. So, adding 4 or 5 more points a game actually makes a big deal in this league.
Yeah, definitely. And then another game, speaking of bad teams and under 100 points playing, the Suns fall to the Clippers. So would you say, if we said at the beginning of the season that the Los Angeles Clippers would be the number 1 team in the West, would you say I'm crazy?
I would be very, very surprised. I would even be surprised if you told me that they'd be the best team in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and they scored 40 points alone in the third quarter, which is incredibly impressive, as they beat the Phoenix Suns 115-99. Devin Booker should have a pretty top positive game with 23 points. DeAndre Ayton had a sublime game, 4 points, 9 rebounds for the first overall pick. That's pretty struggling, but man, the Clippers have been a whole new team. This team doesn't have really a superstar, if you want to say anything about them, and yet they are winning games left and right.
They might not have a superstar, but Tobias Harris is proving that he actually is maybe the next superstar in the NBA. I mean, we're looking at a guy who's carried this team. They're a well-rounded team, don't get me wrong, but he has been the star of this team, and he's looking at becoming a free agent. And I think that this season has gained him a lot of money. He is a max contract
we
player.
always say, what is the most important time to play your best basketball? It's
contract year.
Contract year, exactly.
He's a max. He's going to get a max contract, whether that's with the Clippers or another team. Absolutely getting a max contract as a 3 in the NBA, as a forward that can shoot. Those are players that are in high demand in this day and age in the NBA. As we've seen kind of a focus shift away from the big men to more of the swing players and the guards. 18 points last night on 15 shots. Gallinari had 28 points, 4 of 4 from 3. That's another player that can stroke it. So,
excuse me?
Another player that can stroke it. Yeah.
I would just say shoot it, just to not confuse people.
Okay. You can say whatever you want.
I'm just saying for the children at home.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, now you made it weird. So
no, you made it weird first.
No,
I just called you out.
no, you didn't. But anyways, you want to move on or?
Do we need an awkward silence first, or should we? Yeah, just move on. Just move on. Anyways, we'll talk about other games that happened, such as one of the better teams in the Western Conference as well. The Portland Trailblazers defeated the Orlando Magic 115-112.
Yes, they did.
Damian Lillard, 41 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 13 of 22, 10 3-pointers in a new Portland Trailblazer record for most threes made in a game.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, he is a superstar in my mind, but he doesn't get the lot of love because he's on a team that is in Portland.
Absolutely. I think he's a player. Yes, he does have endorsements. We do see him, but I feel like he's often forgot about when we talk about the best players in the NBA, and he certainly is one of those players. I mean, let's be real. The guy has a killer instinct, and it comes out sometimes. And when it does, I mean, when he gets hot, he gets really hot. 22 shots last night. He attempted 15 threes, but he made 41. He scored 41 points. I mean, that's very good efficiency right there. Take 22 shots and score 41 points.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And you know who had another good game off the bench was Nick Stauskas. 18
Sauce
points.
Castillo.
Stop it.
One of the best nicknames in the NBA for sure.
Yeah, and one of the worst first-round draft picks in recent
He's
memory.
been playing good the last couple of years, but yeah, he'll never live up to the number 6 pick or 7, whatever he was.
Everyone's going to remember Ron Dive of the Sacramento Kings just yelling, Stauskas. He's our guy. Stauskas.
He said, Ron Dive said, he shoots like Curry and he's as big as Clay. That's what he said when they drafted him.
And I'm going to disagree with him on that one just because
you think?
he's one of the worst front office guys. He should not be running the team. He should just be the owner, let other people who have experience in basketball handle it and just shut up. But that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyways, moving on.
We've seen that shift happen in the last couple of years.
It's getting annoying. Anyways, we'll move on to another bad team in the Cavaliers as they fall to the Thunder 100-83. And this was technically Korver's final game as a Cavalier, but he did not play.
Right, he got traded before.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but like if you look at the box score, he's on that box score, so technically he's part of the team at this time.
mm-hmm.
Russell Westbrook with a pretty impressive triple-double, 23 points, 19 rebounds, and 15 assists. It's a pretty good game.
Yeah, he tied Jason Kidd on the all-time triple-double list with that performance last night.
Yes,
So.
Congratulations to him. Do we have anything else to say about this game?
Yeah. Do you think the Thunder are back? I mean, they're 13-7. They had a tough start of the season, but do you think that they've turned that corner, or do you think that they're on the right track?
They're fourth in the West at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
so they're picking up speed again. But we'll see how they progress through the season. But right now they're playing pretty well, so I hope that they just got to keep this momentum going.
Mm-hmm.
They can't think too much ahead.
Mm-hmm.
A team that's also surprising, the Mavericks beat the Rockets 128-108.
You talking about Hallelujah in the Dallas Mavericks?
Is that what you're going to say the rest of the year?
Hey, man, it's a catchy song. I even showed it to my wife last night. She started singing it. I mean, it's just
Does
one
your
of
wife
those.
even watch basketball?
Of course she does.
Okay.
We go to games. She's a fan. You know.
Okay.
She has it on the background when she's watching, like, The Voice.
Is that why you...
other stuff.
Oh, she watches The Voice?
This Is Us and all that, you know.
My mom watches that show. I can't stand it. I just don't like those singing shows because it's just like it's the same show with just different premises.
Yeah. The Voice is at least, like, the better one of them, I would say.
I just don't get into them. I'm sorry, I just don't. Plus, my job is to watch sport games. Wow,
Yeah.
that sounded the most unprofessional sport games is what I just said. But anyways,
Sporty sports.
James Harden had a triple-double himself, 25 points, 11 rebounds, 17 assists. But Doncic with 20 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, etching his name into that Rookie of the Year status, which he probably will get.
Would you say he's number one right now?
Yes.
I would say
Actually,
so.
Marvin Bagley's been playing really well also. So I put him up there.
Yeah, I'd put Bagley up there too, but I think Lucas stands out. And then you could put a guy like
18
Bagley.
has kind of dropped.
Jaren Jackson, I think, has been playing well. I would say Jackson, DeAndre Ayton, and Trae Young would be the next three after maybe Bagley. Bagley's been playing really well lately for the Kings, and he'll be on tonight, and we'll talk about that game later because it is a national game. So it's a TNT tonight. So
TNT.
Yeah. So Luka, though, he had a step back three in the corner last night. Check it out on Twitter. Super good play. Super awesome.
You're on the bandwagon, aren't you?
I mean, have you seen him play? The kid looks like an absolute star.
I know. I would get on that bandwagon.
We're talking about a 19-year-old kid.
It's full. The bandwagon's full. I can't get on there.
I mean,
I'm a fan of the kid. Don't get me wrong.
I will say one thing. Where are the people at who said this kid? There are people, and I'm not saying like people don't have doubts about other prospects, but where are the people at who are like, oh, this kid played in Europe. That's not a tough league. He'll never make it in the NBA. Like that
in
is
their defense,
in their face. In their face.
I was not
wrong.
the ones that said about Europe, and I was agreeing with you that this kid had a lot of potential. Was one of the top prospects. But how many times has a guy from Europe came here and played amazing besides like Giannis in the last couple of years?
A lot of guys do. What do you mean, like how many times? Like it happens a lot. We've seen guys come over from Europe and be dominant NBA players.
Dominant is a strong word. Like Giannis is dominant, sure.
I mean, wasn't Dirk Nowitzki from Europe?
Yeah, but that was 20 years ago he came into the league. Like I'm saying, like it happens every once in a while.
Right, but it doesn't happen any less often than how many kids are busts in the NBA for that were great in college in the United States. Like it's the same thing.
But I understand people's people's restraints when it comes to he played in Europe because they didn't get a chance to see him that often.
Yeah, but honestly, man, when people say that, they really just don't watch him play. Like they really didn't watch him play. They just use that as an argument. Like, oh, he's from Europe, and I don't get to see him.
They also see the preseason games when NBA teams face European teams, and it's a blowout.
Yeah, but I mean, Luka Doncic has been fire. I mean, he's been fire his whole career.
No, I'm agreeing with you, but I'm just saying that I'm using that as a rebuttal to you. Mm-hmm. To like, I'm playing devil's advocate here.
I'm just saying, I read a lot of stuff by people saying, "Oh, he's soft, he's a Euro, blah blah blah." Like that.
Whoa! We don't need that kind of language here.
Yeah, that stuff is nonsense, and I like that Luka is shoving it in everyone's face who doubted him. Like, literally shutting everybody up. It's awesome to see. It really is. Yeah.
Well, with that, we're going to take a short break. When we get back, we'll talk more about the games that happened yesterday, as well as the games today, because we got a pretty huge matchup today that is happening at 5 p.m. Pacific time.
There's 3 good games on the slate tonight.
Yes.
There's only 3, but they're good games,
Yes. And one is kind of surprisingly good game because of how they're playing this season. Mm-hmm. And the rest are kind of self-explanatory, but we'll get right on that when we return.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC's Basketball Podcast. We are finishing up our yesterday's games, November 28th games that happened in the NBA. We just finished talking about the Magic beating the Rockets and how the Magic are playing pretty darn well, as well as Luka Doncic and
you mean the Mavericks?
What'd I say?
Magic?
I said the Mavericks, and I said Luka Doncic Magic.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what I said. Pretty sure I said Luka Doncic Magic.
That's an interesting thing
I
to
said
say.
the Mavericks. I'm pretty positive I said
All
the
right.
Mavericks.
That's an interesting thing to say, Magic. That's kind of weird, no?
Well, speaking of Magic... Wait, we already talked about that game. Darn
Yeah,
it, I thought that'd be a good leeway. Man. Oh, if only. But we'll move on to another team that's much, much better, as the Bucks beat the Bulls 116-113.
Mm-hmm.
And Giannis...
Say his last name.
The Greek Freak. That's his...
Antetokounmpo.
Antetokounmpo. That's like a Wheel of Fortune name.
All right, so how'd he do?
Well, he had 36 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists in a fantastic game for Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Greek Freak is good.
And I'm going to get it right.
Antetokounmpo.
Giannis Antetokounmpo. Boom! Drop the mic.
All right,
I'm
anyways.
out. All right. Yes, he and Brogdon actually on his side had 24 points himself, which is pretty good. Eric Bledsoe kind of was there, 7.66
He was
rebounds,
kind of
4
there,
assists.
kind of not, or what?
7.66 4 rebounds. He was contributing, but not as much as usually he would, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But,
Middleton had another good game. He's a good player.
Yes, and there were 3 players on the Bulls starting lineup that had 22 or more points, and yet they fell. Do you think that this team, the Chicago Bulls...
Are bad?
Yes.
Yes, they're really bad. They also, Lauri Markkanen has been hurt, so that doesn't help. I did want to ask you, though, Chris Middleton on the Bucks, he's going to be a free agent. Do you think that he's a max contract player?
That's a toughie.
Because the Bucks are going to have to make a decision on him. He's probably their second best player.
Yeah, but is Giannis still on a rookie deal, or has he signed a contract already?
I believe he has signed an extension.
I'll look that up. But if he signed an extension and they can afford him, sure, be my guess.
I mean, they can afford him. He's their player. I mean, they can max him out.
Yeah.
That's the thing about the NBA is that you can go over the cap to max your own guys. So they can max Middleton if they want.
Giannis agreed to a 4-year, $100 million extension. So he's there. And yeah, if they can, and we can go over the cap to keep your guys, I'm sure that's what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure when Giannis's contract's over, they're going to give him the supermax. Pretty sure that's stating all yes.
Yep, you can just write that one down for the next 8 years or so. So, okay. So the Bulls. I mean, I thought they gave them a fight last night, but the better team won. And the Bucks now, what do they find themselves? 15-6, or right behind Toronto.
Yeah, they're itching up Toronto's behind. That's for sure. They're 15-6. Toronto is 18-4. And speaking of other teams that are good in the East, well, maybe not good, but they've been on a roll lately. The Hornets beat the Hawks 108-94.
Mm-hmm.
And again, Kemba Walker having a pretty decent game, 19 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Not one of his best, but Jeremy Lamb had a 22.5 rebound game, so good for him on that one. And it just seems like it's just me, or the Hornets seem like a team that's on the rise.
Yeah, and I think that they're a playoff team in the East. I mean, I know it's early. I initially didn't have them in, but man, I think I had them at 9th. They're looking like they are a playoff team, though. Kemba Walker is just having an incredible season. He's another player. We talked about Lillard. Very quiet just because they don't play for a nationally dominant team, a notable team in the NBA. But, man, Kemba Walker is having himself a heck of a season.
Isn't that kind of strange? Because that's Michael Jordan's team.
Yeah, it's just Charlotte, though. I mean,
yeah, but he's still running that team that you would expect to get a little more recognition.
I don't know. I think it's more like the area, right? Like the franchise.
I guess.
I mean, let's be honest. Michael Jordan doesn't have the best track record as being a president. So.
Yeah, true, but I don't think anyone really cares about that. It's Michael Jordan. His name is a draw type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
He could come back and play for the Hornets, right?
Maybe not this Hornets team, but there were some bad teams that he looked over.
You mean the Bobcats?
Yeah, the Bobcats.
Yeah, there are some bad teams there. Moving on, we have another top team in the East. The 76ers beat the New York Knicks 117-91 in a slaughter.
It was never close.
Yeah. And Embiid with a 26.14 rebound, 7 assists, great game for him. Redick had a 24-point game himself. Jimmy Butler kind of was pedestrian at 7 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Ben Simmons had a pretty decent game himself, 14 points and 8 rebounds.
Redick had a good game, too.
I already said him. I said 24 points for Redick.
Mm-hmm.
And, Tim Hardaway Jr., 5 points, 1 rebound, 3 assists. 1 for 11 from the field. 0 and 6 from threes. That is...
He had a tough game. They focused on him, especially Jimmy Butler. He really just took Hardaway out of this game.
Yeah, and when he's like one of your best players and he's taken away, it obviously showed. And
the Knicks got blown out. This game
and
was
Alonzo
over early.
Trier, like one of their top scorers, their undrafted guy out of Arizona. Mainly he was undrafted because he had some drug issues there because he was caught with steroids. But he had 8 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, but he had a pretty decent game. He's been playing pretty decent himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if he's on the right team. He's on a team that can give him a chance. So,
Yeah, but if he wasn't busted in college, I think he could have gotten a first round draft pick.
Okay.
What about
the T-Wolves and the Spurs?
Oh, we can talk about them. The Spurs lost this one in a pretty humiliating fashion, 128-89. Timberwolves just all over them. DeMar DeRozan, who's been playing extremely well lately, only had 10 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists. Marcus Aldridge, 10 points, 9 rebounds. Rudy Gay, 3 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Like, everyone just played very mediocre ball. And then you look on the other side of the spectrum, Derrick Rose off the bench with yet again, 16 points for him, who's probably going to get most improved player of the year. You
Maybe
don't think so?
Not. No.
Why not?
He could. I don't see it.
Do you see somebody else?
Yeah. I think we'll see. I think right now, if they did the awards right now, and I've seen some people mention this on different websites, but if they gave most improved right now, it'd be De'Aaron Fox.
Okay.
Because he's improved his numbers across the board big time. So, but I mean...
But the award used to be comeback player of the year, and that's why
improved. I was talking about most improved player of the year.
Yeah, it used to be called that, and then it moved to improved.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just using based off of that knowledge. But if I had to pick between De'Aaron Fox and Derrick Rose, thing is, Derrick Rose had that 50-point game, which I think would have put him over the top.
Yeah, but it's only one game. They're going to look at numbers when in this award, and I'm not saying he doesn't have good numbers, but yes, Derrick Rose has had a good season. I would say that he's in the top 3 in this category right now. But yeah, I think that he would be the runner-up if they did it today.
Yeah, probably.
So, anyways, the Spurs, they get humiliated. Like, what is going on with this team?
They started off pretty well, all things considered, this season, and now they're in the post era of their dominance now. We know that for certain, and it's starting to show. They're starting to decay. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I think when you lose Kawhi, Parker, Ginobili, Tim Duncan, all in the stretch of 3 years, it's going to be very tough to replace those players. Absolutely.
Well, they still have those 5 NBA championships to take home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Popovich, he's future Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. I don't think there's any question. And I don't think there's any question of his legacy there. So whenever he decides to end his coaching career, he's going to have a lasting legacy. So nothing could possibly hurt his legacy.
I think we had one last game to talk about from last night.
Pelicans and Wizards?
Mm-hmm. How'd that game go?
Pelicans won this one, 125-104.
I was interested in this game because the Wizards have been playing a little bit better.
Yeah. Anthony Davis, 28 points, 15 rebounds. And off the bench, Julius Randle with 23 points and 12 rebounds himself. And then Drew Holiday with a 29-point game. And it just seemed great for the Pelicans. And as for the Wizards, they're still coming off like some turmoil, I guess you can say, in the works.
Mm-hmm.
So It just seemed like the Pelicans did pretty well. They were favored by 6.5 points. They obviously beat that.
Julius Randle had another big game off the bench. He's been a really good player for them. Really nice addition. 23 and 12.
I don't know why the Lakers didn't hold on to him.
They let him go because they needed the salary cap space.
I know, but still, they could have probably kept him because they could go over the salary cap because he's an in-house player.
Well, they couldn't keep him and then get some of the other players. They needed the money to get Lance Stevenson and Rondo. So it was a LeBron
thing. Did they really
thing.
need to get Lance Stevenson and Rondo?
LeBron wanted him. What are you going to do? Tell him no?
All right. Fair enough.
I mean, you tell him. I'm not.
Fine. Hey, LeBron. Ow.
So anyways, yeah, New Orleans, I mean, they're 11-11. They're right there. Mm-hmm. Do you think that they're a playoff team? They started off really hot. They've been cooled off.
There's a good chance they are, but we'll see as the year progresses. But do you want to take a break before we get into the games tomorrow?
Yeah. Or tonight's games, you mean?
What did I say?
Tomorrow.
Oh, I meant today. Sorry.
Yeah, let's take a break and talk about tomorrow's games.
Yeah,
tonight.
Yeah, you did the same thing. We'll be right back right after this.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. We finished talking about yesterday's games that happened in the NBA. Now we're moving on to today's games, as we will start with some of the TNT primetime matchups. One is probably the biggest game of the year by far so far. Yeah, that made sense. Warriors and Raptors. The 15-7 Warriors versus the 18-4 Raptors. Obviously, these are the best teams in each other's conferences. Maybe not by record, but we know by talent that these two are the best teams in their respective conferences. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
Yeah, Toronto's, they've been stellar with the addition of Kawhi Leonard, and then obviously we know we don't need to talk about Golden State. They don't need any introduction, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you don't know anything about the Warriors, you've been living under a rock for the past 6 years, 4 years, 5 years, so a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And with the last time these two played each other, it was 127-125. The Golden State Warriors won this game by the skin of their teeth. And this was when DeMar DeRozan was around, and he had a 42-point game that game.
Mm-hmm.
And so
he won't be involved tonight.
Unfortunately, he won't for them. But, Kawhi Leonard for DeMar DeRozan, that's a pretty good trade-off.
I would say so.
And with this showdown, do you see a high-scoring game? Do you see it close? Do you see a blowout? What do you see?
I'm surprised that the Raptors are favored by 9.5 points. That seems very high. But
I think it's based off record.
Well, I think it's mostly based on the fact that they don't think Curry's going to play tonight. He could play tonight, but it sounds like most likely
he's going to play Saturday, most likely,
exactly.
when they play the Clippers.
Exactly. Sounds like most likely he will get his return on Saturday. So, with that being said, Draymond Green's not playing either. Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant. I don't know. I still feel like double digits, against the Warriors is a little bit much, but it could happen. It absolutely could. I just wouldn't feel comfortable betting that way, if I'm being completely honest. I don't know. I don't think this game really says anything, though, because the Warriors are not playing nearly at full strength. they're missing their best player. I mean, yes, Kevin Durant might be the best basketball player, but Steph Curry is their best player. He's the best Warriors player. So,
are you saying that Durant's not a part of the Warriors anymore?
I'm saying that even if Kevin Durant is a better basketball player than Steph Curry's the best Warriors player. Mm-hmm. He's the one that team revolves around.
Durant did just go to them asking, "Can I please have a trophy?"
It's just crazy. When you look at the Warriors' record without Curry, it's bad. When it's with Curry but without Durant, it's fine. It's actually fine. So they haven't proven that they're a great team without Curry. They've proven they're a great team without Durant.
Do you think Durant will ever wipe off this little, you went to the Warriors because you wanted to win a championship without trying type feel that people are telling him? Because he seems like he has some. He got fined not too long ago for cursing out a fan for telling him what they felt about him. Do you think he's thin-skinned, or do you think it's he's just tired of all the hate?
Oh, Durant's incredibly thin-skinned. I don't think there's any question about that.
Do you remember at the ESPYs when Peyton Manning did the women's gymnastics team was so good that Durant said he wants to play with them next year, and he gave him that dirty look.
That's like the joke, right? Like, oh, this team is so good. You know, like, I guess like
my new chapter or whatever it is.
Has somebody made the Duke joke yet? Like, oh, maybe Durant will join Duke and play with Zion.
But honestly, why didn't Durant laugh on the ESPYs? You got to show some you got to be lighthearted about that.
Because he's very sensitive. That's why.
But it's Peyton Manning. Like, he's obviously joking. Like, I don't know. I just personally was like, okay, you're taking this a little too seriously.
Do you think this game tonight means more for the Raptors than it does the Warriors?
Honestly, I think it means both to them a bunch, because I think the Warriors need to
You think it means something for both teams, huh?
Yes, because I think the Warriors still need to prove that they're the best team in the NBA.
But they're not with their best player, so
they need to prove they can win without Curry.
I mean, do they need to prove that? It's not like they're not going to be with them, you know? Like,
yeah, but I just feel like that it's probably the best thing to show that like we're so good even without Curry. But yeah,
I don't know. I disagree. I think this game is
or
pretty
Durant,
meaningless.
or maybe it's for Durant. It's like
I mean, it's fun. It's a fun game.
I think
it's
it's for Durant mostly. It's like I need to win without Curry.
Yeah, Durant's been playing very well. He's coming off, 49-point game, 41 the game before that. He is hot right now, so he could make a statement on national TV.
The Warriors played so well that he wants to keep playing with them.
Yeah. Anyways, what are the other two games on tonight's slate?
We got an interesting matchup right after that on TNT. We got the number one team in the West, the Los Angeles Clippers, against the Sacramento Kings, who are a surprising 10-10.
Yeah, this game is on TNT, which is surprising because I believe this is Sacramento's only national TV game of the season. But the Clippers, man, who's been more surprising, the Kings or the Clippers? I say the Clippers.
Yeah, that they're the best team in LA at the moment. That is surprising.
I'd say that both teams are very surprising, but the Clippers get the slight edge in the surprising department.
Yes, the Kings are looking to end an 11-game home losing streak against the Clippers. It is the national televised game, like we said, and this is the Clippers back-to-back. They play out. This is their second night of a back-to-back, which they just beat the Suns, like we talked about, 115-99. And I mean, you got to think about it. Is this a advantage for Sacramento as they're getting the rest, or is this more good for the Clippers who are coming off a huge win?
I think the win was easy enough for the Clippers that they didn't have to expend all their energy, but it is a back-to-back. They did travel. So you got to give a slight edge to Sacramento in that regard. I don't know if it'll be enough to win the game, but hey, the Kings play fast. They're a fast-paced team, so you could see how the second night of a back-to-back being tough for the Clippers. Just because, I mean, at the very least, the Kings will push them physically. So I expect a close game in this game. I don't know really who I like more, but I expect a good basketball game. It's on TNT. It's the second of the doubleheader tonight.
Do you see a double-digit lead for one of the winners, or do you see it as a single-digit?
Well, the Clippers are only a 2-point favorite, so that kind of tells you everything that you need.
That's kind of surprising.
It's the second night of back-to-back. True. Most of the time, those teams lose. So, yeah.
Oh, and then finally we have the Pacers and Lakers. Lakers are the 4.5-point favorites in this game. This is not national.
Pacers have been playing pretty good.
Yes, they have. I mean, remember that Darren Collison destroyed DeAndre Ayton's ankle.
The Pacers are on the road too, but they were in Phoenix on Tuesday, so they've had a day rest. And I mean, they just crushed the Jazz, and they beat the Suns. They didn't crush the Suns, but they win that game. So that's going to be an interesting game as the Lakers try and get back on track.
Yeah, true. And honestly, I think both these teams need a win to just end one little rough patch they've had and keep Pacers momentum-wise. Lakers are playing pretty inconsistently, you can say.
What do you think about the new reports that LeBron James is not listening to Luke Walton and kind of running his own plays out on the court? Do you think there's anything to this?
It's just LeBron being LeBron. He did the same thing in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of just does his own thing, which is okay. He reminds me of Jackie Moon from Semi Pro. He's the player, coach, owner, general manager, cheerleader, and advertiser. He's everything of the Lakers. Nothing happens with the Lakers organization without his say so.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I hate to say it, but Luke Walton is kind of just the coach until they decide, hey, LeBron doesn't get along with you. We're going to go in a different direction, right? I mean, that's kind of how it'll go, in my opinion. Especially if they continue to hover around the 500 mark, I think there is some pressure there. So tonight's a good test. Indiana's not a great team, but I think it's the game you have to win for the Lakers, wouldn't you say?
Oh, 100%. I agree with you on that one. And I think it's mainly because, like, again, 11-9 doesn't sound like great, doesn't it? It just sounds like it's mediocre at best. And LeBron James' team should not be considered just mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they need to win this game to prove that they're still a team, the team that everyone thought they were going to be going into this season, adding LeBron James.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that they've been underwhelming so far? It's still early, 20 games in.
Yeah, I'll give it another month, then we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I wanted to ask you, of these three teams in the West who have been very disappointing thus far, which team is the least likely to turn it around, and why? So, which team is the least likely to turn it around? The Spurs, the Rockets, or the Jazz?
I'm going to say with the trade, I'm going to go Jazz.
So they're the least likely to turn it around?
Oh, I thought you said most likely to turn it around.
No, I said it twice. I said least likely.
Who's the least? Oh, the
likely?
Spurs.
The Spurs are the least likely?
Yeah.
Okay, why do you say that?
Because they just lost too much, and I think they're thinking about a rebuilding mode anyways. So that's
really,
I think it's going to go down. Yeah.
You think Popovich is interested in a rebuild?
I don't think he is interested. I think he just has to.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough times in San Antonio. They're definitely a transitional period right now, but I think I'm with you. The Jazz to me are an interesting team. In this scenario, I think the Rockets are going to turn it around. I don't think they'll be as dominant as they were last year. I think they really miss Trevor Ariza. But when we look at these three teams, I still think the Jazz have the ability to play defense, even though they haven't shown it this year. Korver will help, but I'm not really counting that as a factor in them turning it around. I think it'll be a slight bump. But yeah, the Spurs, I just think they lack a little bit of athleticism, talent, and it's a tough Western Conference. And when I look at the roster, I evaluate the team. They're really thin at guard. Beyond DeRozan and Aldridge, I mean, sure, Rudy Gay's a decent player, but I'm not so sure that he's a player that we can really count on to move a team over the top. We saw him in Sacramento. He wasn't able to help that team get over the hump. They were bad every year. We saw it in Toronto. The Raptors got better when they traded Rudy Gay. We saw it in Memphis. The Grizzlies got better when they traded Rudy Gay. To me, he's a decent player, but he's not capable of carrying a team. And I just don't know who that third guy is for them. Like, they don't really have another player other than DeRozan and Aldridge who can really, I guess, carry the team on any given night. So,
true.
That's where I stand with that as well. Do you think the Rockets are more likely or less likely to turn it around than the Jazz, though, if we just take those two teams?
Now it's tough because, like, we know what these two teams are capable of, and we all thought high things in the offseason, did we not?
Mm-hmm.
So, honestly, I can't answer that question right now. I think it's too early to tell.
Yeah. I think the Rockets will turn it around, though. They're just too talented. I mean, yeah, maybe they're aging a little bit with Chris Paul getting older. James Harden is still James Harden, though. He can get to the line. He scores at will. I mean, every night he's a threat to have a triple-double. Every night he's a threat to score 50. They have some good players. The Carmelo Anthony, I don't know why they got him, to be completely honest with you. It looked like it was going to be a bad marriage right away, and it was. I mean, that's such a bad marriage. It's called an annulment, right? Like, they got
an annulment, yeah.
They got divorced so fast that it wasn't even recognized by the church, if you know what I mean. So,
yeah, it's like, I regret this immediately.
Now, D'Antoni just came out with some comments saying that, you know, they have a lack of depth, and I agree with that. I think that they are a very limited team. They don't have the depth that they did before. And they really, really relied on a guy like Carmelo to be that guy. I mean, I know he didn't really want to be a bench player, but they really relied on him to bolster a very subpar bench. And, I mean, that didn't work out. So where do they go from here? Do they need to make a move? I don't even know what kind of move they could actually make. Do you?
Not really, no. It's, again, we're so early in this season that, like, if you make moves at this time, it's almost like you're giving up on you're not giving them the opportunities they need. Like, you know what I mean? More the long lines of, like,
Chris Paul had another DNP last night with his sore leg. This kind of feels like he's breaking down too. That contract might end up being really bad. You know what I mean? They just signed him to that deal long term.
True.
It makes you wonder why Minnesota didn't take those 4 first-round picks, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with this team. Anyways, what do you think about us taking a break here in a second or two?
Give me a couple more seconds. I'm not.
Oh, you need a few more seconds, huh?
Yes, now we're ready.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Totally no production problems at all. All right, we'll be right back right after this. When we get back, what are we going to be talking about? Any other news?
You want to talk about Dwight Howard? I'll let you take the stage.
Oh, boy. All right, we'll talk about Dwight Howard when we get back.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast. And we are going to go talk about something very interesting that happened.
Go ahead.
So Dwight Howard was a part... I don't feel comfortable talking about this.
Let's just say, why don't we just leave that for the listeners? They can do their own research on this very sensitive topic.
Let's just say he had an interaction with a certain person.
Yeah, you all listening out there, I'm sure you know, but if you don't, anyways, do you think this is? I mean, this is just another thing for the Wizards, right? Like just another thing to deal with. How do you think that locker room is reacting about the recent news?
The recent news. I think, honestly, social media is more having of a day of this because he said about the injury that it was a glute injury.
Not a gluten. Gluten is in bread.
I know. I said gluttony, or what did he say?
Gluteal.
A gluteal injury, and that and asked for a lot of questions that I'm.
Do you think this will affect the team though?
It's more gonna be more of a running joke than anything else. I think it's gonna be more of like oh ha 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 ha, butt hurts. I don't know. I don't know how else to say this.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact of the matter is, this is gonna just lead to this is gonna blow over in like a week or so. But how this all transpired and how he explained his injury made it more difficult than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Anyways. What do you think of? I'll save you here. What do you think of?
I'm so uncomfortable.
Kawhi Leonard and his New Balance shoe deal. What are your first reactions to that?
Not the brand I would expect him to be on. To be completely honest with you.
Why is that?
Because it's not. I usually use like Nike or Under Armour or something like that, you know. But when it really went to that balance, like really, like that is the last person I would. That was the last company I would expect a superstar, because he's a superstar, isn't he? Mm-hmm. And a superstar would go to a company that's not as highly touted as those other ones, as Nike, as Jordan, as Under Armour, and so on and so forth. Or even Adidas or Reebok. Like, that is the bottom of the barrel, in my opinion, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wouldn't you call it as?
I'm just hoping that it's the same New Balance that we all think of in our heads when we talk about New Balance shoes. The white, the dad shoes, right? They're dad shoes.
Yeah.
White with the blue New Balance logo on the
when
side.
I think of Balance, I think of the Power Balance bracelets. Remember those things back in the day?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what I never really thought of the Power Balance shoes. So, yeah. It's definitely an interesting thing, to say the least, of how this is his first. I don't know the exact. What was the contract? What was the pay? Do you know?
I have not seen that yet, but I'm sure it was ridiculous.
Yeah, because
to get signed, for him to choose New Balance, I mean,
for this guy to sign, he must have been like, oh wow, all this money, and all I have to wear is your bad shoes. Maybe not bad shoes, but what's the word? Not as popular shoes. There it is. Perfect word for it.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what it looks like, what these shoes look like, to be honest with you.
Shoes have Kyrie's face on them.
But hearing him sign a New Balance made me think of Kawhi's laugh. Remember how his laugh was like going viral? That was
every time you step, the shoe goes. Oh,
I feel like that's the laugh of New Balance. Like if you wear New Balances,
every
you laugh.
The shoe's gonna have audible laughs with Kawhi's laugh on it as you step.
You know what though? People were talking a lot of mess about Curry when he signed with Under Armour, and Under Armour is a big brand now. Like it's bigger than it was when Curry signed with them. But don't you remember people were like, "What? Under Armour? Like you got to go with Nike or Adidas. But, Puma's in the mix now. We see Puma getting some athletes.
Well, Puma has been popular in the past,
But they were not popular in they haven't made basketball shoes in a long time, and then they finally got back.
Yeah, well, they're more of an Olympic shoe,
They signed Ayton and Bagley, I think, were the top two that they picked, that they signed in the draft.
But Puma's more of a Olympic shoe, right? Like Olympic sprinters and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I have to say about that is, like, obviously they're trying to get into a new, what's the word? A new audience of basketball, and going into this, it's a smart business decision. But can they get more than Kawhi Leonard? New Balance, I mean,
that's a good start, right? Now their next marketing pitch to, I don't know, let's just say Luka Doncic, for example. You insert any young player here. Hey, we got Kawhi. So do you want to join this team? You and Kawhi will be the faces of our brand. That's not bad.
Maybe Devin Booker?
That's not bad though, right?
Yeah, absolutely not. But I'm trying to think about it. Who else would go to New Balance?
It takes one, and then you can.
Everybody gets one. But Devin Booker would be a good one, I think, for New Balance. Like, you got.
I don't know who he signed with, so that would take some research.
But I'm just saying, like, I'm thinking of ideas of who to go for, like who New Balance.
You probably want to go for somebody who's in a more marketable player, somebody in a different area. Mm-hmm. But anyways, I think we're done here, right?
Yeah, sounds about right. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And please tune us in on Monday. We're not doing Friday like we've said before because of us moving new locations.
Basketball is only on Tuesday and Thursday.
Well, we have Monday shows is what I'm saying. And we are moving locations, so we will not do Friday shows. But Monday shows, we have sports, football, and fantasy football, and we'll have basketball back on Tuesday. So we will see you then. Have a good weekend, everybody.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.